We've made several enhancements to Prisma Access Insights since the beginning of this calendar year. Most significantly, you would have noticed how the alerts framework has completely been overhauled, and it was done with the view to giving greater reliability and fidelity of the signals that we were monitoring and using to generate alerts and notifications that were sent to the subscribers of Prisma Access alerts. All the infrastructure related alerts were being sent to you through the alert framework, and we brought in the platform to the same platform that runs the backend for Prisma Access Insights. So this helped us not only deliver on the promise of greater fidelity and reliability of the alerts that were being generated, but we were able to introduce state management for the alerts, as well as which made sure that it would reduce the noise that several of you had mentioned about alerts. And we were able to essentially manage how the alert lifecycle was being controlled. So you would have seen a lot of those developments in the alerts framework since the end of March, and we followed that up with successive releases in April and May. We also introduced the means of notification profiles for alerts, which helps you select the alerts of interest to you and select how and to whom you would want these alerts to go to. So we introduced the channel of webhooks in addition to emails. And webhooks is the means by which you specify an HTTP endpoint for ingesting the stream of alerts that are sent from our backend, as well as displayed on the UI for Prisma Access Insights. We have gotten really good feedback from all of you as to how these developments have been in line with the expectation that we had set with you about managing our alerts in a lot more predictable manner, as well as increasing the usability of the alerts by giving you notification profiles and state management. We are continuing to innovate on that end and make these a lot more usable on all fronts, and you will continue to see more channels by which these alerts are sent to you. Additionally, what we had heard from a lot of you were about one of the biggest requirements that most of our customers had indicated for a long time was the requirement to be able to see who was connected to Prisma Access and how many. We were always giving you a visibility into how many users were connected to Prisma Access, but the way in which we had historically created our data pipelines couldn't give us that exact insight into exactly who was connected to Prisma Access at this moment. And this is what our customers had indicated was one of the biggest needs. Hence, we took on the really redoing our pipelines to indicate to you what the details that we could show you as requested by you for our mobile users. And these mobile users, as you know, are who we refer to as users that have a Global Protect agent on their device through which they connect to Prisma Access. These class of users are the Global Protect connected users. We also have a means by which some of our customers access Prisma Access, and that is through a SWIG, or which we call an explicit proxy. This release focused on enhancements to the mobile user experience that our Global Protect users would have. And these are, again, as I mentioned, users that have the Global Protect agent on their device through which they connect to Prisma Access. Release 3.1.2 was generally available beginning of August, and that was just over a month ago. And we followed that up with 2 hot fixes to address some of the biggest bugs that we noticed in the release. As you know, we do our best to address the bugs that are determined by QA, but however, we cannot plan for the extensive deployments that many of you have in real life. And we very often see a lot of these in the field once they are released, and we do our best to address them as soon as possible. This was similarly the case with the release that went out on August 4th, and we followed up in 2 weeks with our first hotfix. That was sometime in the early 3rd week of August. And we followed up with another hotfix that went out last week, last Thursday. I think, sorry, last Tuesday. So this release, which you obviously as consumers of our SaaS application do not need to be aware that it's PI 3.1.2. However, we internally have referred to it as 3.1.2 with the HF1 and HF2 being the hot fixes that address the bugs that were identified in this release. So this release was focused on, as I indicated, mobile user data enhancements, as well as several usability features that have long been asked by in the field. So we took on that as the major features for this release. In terms of Okay, so I also noticed that there are questions that are coming in, and I will first go through a little bit of the discussions, and we'll pick these questions up as at intermediate points. And if I don't not get to all the questions by the end of the session, then we will certainly take these on and address them offline and send you a response. But in the interest of time and to make sure I cover the material, I will go through the material first, including the walkthrough of the demo instance I have to indicate the features and the usability enhancements that we have made. To address the connected users list along with the user count, which we provide in current time, which is real time, as well as in a historical trend, we have made changes to the data that you are going to see in your dashboards. Additionally, we introduced the ability to view your mobile user license consumption, not just as a point in time, as we used to show it earlier, which is basically what does it look like today with respect to all the licenses you've procured, but we also created a widget to show you what this license consumption looks like over the past 30 days. We felt this was going to be extremely helpful to you to see how your data consumption has changed in the last 30 days and through this trend chart. And not only do we provide you that number, but we are providing you now with the users list that account towards the consumption of this license so that you can certainly validate this with your own backend data to understand whether this corresponds to your understanding of what that mobile user license consumption looks like. Another area where we have spent extensive time is a complete overhaul of our mobile user map redesign. So in overhauling this mobile user map, we again focused on the connected user as our basic construct. And you can now see the users with respect to your Prisma Access locations in real time, as well as in a historical time context. So this redesign or overhaul of the map was a significant undertaking that was released in the last release. Doing all this, what we also realized was that the number of commonalities that exist between our Global Protect connected user and our explicit proxy mobile user are not that many. as a result of which very often um, the uploading of the widgets on the page would get impacted, and your page load times were sometimes quite long because of the need to concatenate two very different tables at the back end. So we decided to split up the views for mobile users. So now mobile users who connect through Global Protect and who use the explicit proxy means of connecting via a web page to their Prisma Access deployment have been separated. What this did was that we then went ahead and deprecated the connect method selector that we had for most pages to view your data for either Global Protect or explicit proxy, because now all of these had their own landing page and we no longer needed that. This significantly improved the page load, as I just explained, and you should have experienced essentially a much better user experience in consuming the data you were interested in. So these were largely the mobile user data enhancements, and we followed this up with the opportunity to bring in other features that were also very visible to our customers, and you wanted some changes in that respect. The first was increasing the binning granularity for all charts. In the past, for instance, if you selected the page time filter selector as 7 days, those data were represented by 7 points. As a result of these, a single point for each day's data, there was a lot of smoothing of the complete data that was available in the backend during this period. And very often the chart did not give you the appropriate trending or reflected the true data behavior that you would expect. So we have significantly increased the binning granularity for all charts so that now you see a lot more of the data trending that you would expect. And it's not an overall smoothing of several data points throughout the time period of interest. So that was a big undertaking. Additionally, we changed the bandwidth units, which were statically determined in the beginning, to a dynamic selection based on the data range. These are most evident in the bandwidth charts, whereby in the earlier times, even if you had very low data throughput at the low end of the units, you would see it represented as megabits per second. Therefore, your consumption might have looked like 0.001 megabits per second. Now we have changed that and made it more dynamic. Therefore, you see the throughput charts at the low end of the range reflected in kilobits per second. This gives you a little bit more insights into the significant figures that you might be interested in, as well as, of course, if you go to the higher end, and if you have tens or hundreds of megabits of consumption, you do see that in megabits per second. So this just improves the visual experience. We also introduced not just earlier we were showing all the charts by the log scale, and we improved that in a release prior to 3.1.2, where we introduced the linear scale. This was a very frequently asked requirement from a lot of customers to view charts in the linear scale, and we introduced that for all charts, have the ability to toggle the charts. Another usability feature, which didn't really change any of the data, but definitely improves your experience with the page, is that very often the pages would have a lot of white space because there was nothing new to report, or there was not enough data to show you on the page, and therefore you saw a lot of white space on the pages. We have gone ahead and fixed that and changed the type of charts we display. So now you have a much better visual representation in the pages, and we are doing a lot more of the viewable area optimization. So all of these encompass the mobile user data enhancements as well as the usability features. So let me move to the next slide and indicate in a nutshell what these release changes mean to you, our Prisma Access customers. So at the highest end was the connected users list with the user count. And this was the most requested feature, as I already indicated. What this does is it provides you with working in the NOC as the network operator or analyst, a much clearer operational visibility into your network usage. You have the ability to now come to Prisma Access Insights and view exactly who is connected to Prisma Access right now and see your users by not just the real-time lens, but also from the location lens. You can see if you are a global customer, you can see who is logged into the Americas, or you can choose within America different areas, or you can see within Asia or the Europe how your users, which of your users are connected now, which helps you, of course, do a much better troubleshooting for users who haven't been able to connect for various reasons. The 30-day MU license consumption trend chart was a very common request, again, from customers who wish to understand the license utilization behavior, to plan for license upgrades, to perhaps even increase their consumption of the mobile user license base because of the growth in your users who are connecting to Prisma Access. So having that view, the trending view of how your license consumption changed from the beginning of the last 30 days to the end of the 30 days gives you a fair idea about that. So instead of presenting just the current data as we had it earlier, we are now providing that 30-day view. And within that, we are also providing the users that contribute towards the consumption of the license. We were doing this out of band for many of our customers who would reach out and say that they would really like to have the list of these users because they weren't quite sure that the license consumption we were providing them was reflecting clearly their understanding of users who were connecting to Prisma Access. We were only too happy to provide that list because that gives you full understanding, full transparency into how you're consuming Prisma Access resources. And additionally, we then don't have to do this out of cycle and spend those few days with you having to wait for that data. So that was definitely another top of the list. So these two were 1 and 2 of the changes we brought in. The mobile user map redesign absolutely fits in within the usability improvements, providing you that real-time as well as historical view of connected users. Earlier, we had a two-pronged set of filters by which you would be able to view that data. We had a lot of feedback from you that wasn't really making things very clear. And the usability of the map was limited by the way it had been designed. We have completely overhauled, and we hope you will use the map now extensively to understand your consumption and see the data that is being presented to you. The bringing granularity and dynamic selection of bandwidth units, as I indicated, provide you that better visibility into the data we are showing you, whether it is a data trend, how your data is changing over a 30-day period or over a week's period, giving you that better sense of your consumption. And as I indicated, this, for instance, the 7 days earlier had 7 data points. Now they have 336 data points, in much greater number of data being shown to you on the graphs, and therefore the trending behavior becomes very obvious. The page view optimization definitely helps you in seeing the data and not just have your visuals area filled with white space. In terms of some of the changes that got necessitated by this was, you will see that the MU Connect method has been deprecated. The left nav now on the MU page selector has the global protect as well as the explicit proxy, which eliminates the confusion between the agent-based as well as the browser-based access. So with that, let me move forward to some of what these changes are. And I see that there are 2 questions, and we'll get to that once we have, once I come to a natural point by which I have indicated most of the changes. Here, I'm indicating the binning changes that show increased granularity in all charts. And you see how the number of data points have changed in the last 15 minutes, last 1 hour, and most evident in the last 24 hours, last 7 days, and last 30 days. Earlier, the last 30 days had 30 data points corresponding to 1 point per day. And now that those have all been significantly enhanced. So the bin sizes for most of the lower end, all the way from last 15 minutes to last 3 hours for most of our charts, are in 3-minute increments. For the last 24 hours, they are in the 5-minute increments, and the 7 days are, we show you data obtained every 30 minutes, and over 30 days, we use 3 hours. The only difference in these bin sizes is that for the mobile user connected users charts and tables, we provide you the bin size of 5 minutes, all the way from 15 minutes to the 24 hours. So it's a 5-minute increments that the data is available. Everything else remains the same. So the bandwidth charts, we actually get data every minute, but we are showing you on the charts every 3 minutes. So this definitely provides you greater visibility into the data trending behavior, less smoothing. So it definitely falls in the bucket of the usability enhancements. The other feature that we introduced was the dynamic selection of bandwidth units. Earlier, everything was in megabits per second. Now you do see that the significant figures go up as we represent the data at the lower end by kilobits per second. And of course, as you go higher and your consumption looks greater, you do see the chart data in megabits per second. So the bandwidth units on our histograms dynamically switch from at kilobits per second for very small values all the way to megabits per second, and as needed to gigabits per second. So we cover that entire range and choose the units that most reflect the bandwidth consumption at the different levels. So those were the largely the usability enhancements I wanted to talk to, and let's now move into some of the data enhancements for the mobile user Global Protect, how we are bringing you the user list and the user count. Excuse me. So let me see if there are questions that pertain to what I've talked so far. So yes, I will certainly get to, there was a question from on the improvements, what have been deprecated. These have really not been deprecated, so I will certainly get to those questions as I come to the that part. So earlier, our pipelines were using the login information that we would get from the Global Protect databases. And there was no way for us to really correlate the actual presence of users on these, on our cloud service with the users that were logging in. Hence, we were able to provide you statistical views into those who were connected to Prisma Access. We would show you either the average or peak users who were connected, and not be able to provide you exactly the list of users. We have now standardized our basic users to the connected users, and we are getting the data directly from the cloud services to get a clear understanding of which users and thus which usernames are connected to Prisma Access. And we can now give you full visibility into that in real time as well as in historical time. So we have the widget called Current on your mobile user Global Protect page, which shows you the real-time users who are connected to Prisma Access. Below that is the highlighted connected users. And once you click on that, you get the view of the users who are the details of the users who are connected to Prisma Access. Now, it's useful to remember that the data that we show for devices, which is basically the global protect version, for instance, the OS for the family of the device, OS pertaining to the device that the user is connecting with, are all property of the devices that our users are connecting. So we can have a single user connected who is specified in terms of their username, connected through multiple devices to Prisma Access. And it's hard to then indicate what is that global protect version that this user represents, because truly the global protect agent version is a property of the device and not the property of the user. So we present that information when you click on the user, and that goes to a user details page, which shows you all the devices that the user has used to connect to Prisma Access, and which then shows you what is the global protect agent that or version that is on the user's device, how many times that the user has had login events to connect to Prisma Access in the selected time filter, what was the last location that they connected from, what was the last PA, Prisma Access, as well as the user location, what was the last login time, and all the other details that we used to show in terms of user connections. So you can now click on the user and you get to that view of that specific user's devices that they have used to connect to Prisma Access, including the Global Protect version, the OS version of the device, the login times on the device, and so forth. So all of that information is present. It's there in the user details page that you get from the connected users page by clicking on a user. We are also going to be restoring the list of all the devices that the user has used to connect to Prisma Access. And this is basically the aggregation of all these devices that you get when you click on a single user. So we used to present that information earlier from user connections, but it was very hard to tie in to who the connected users are, simply because of the different databases that these correspond to. So we undertook the task of redoing our entire pipelines. And once you overhaul the entire pipelines, you cannot reuse part of the data from the previous set and part from the new. So we had to phase how we would present the data. We chose to present the current connected users information first, and we're following up with the aggregated list of all the devices that pertain to the connected users you see. And you will have that information available to you at the end of this month with another update that we do to Prisma Access Insights. So that will complete the set of all the information that you had earlier, except that now you have greater fidelity into knowing who's connected to Prisma Access and all the devices pertaining to all the users that are connected to Prisma Access. The other major undertaking we had was to show you the 30-day view for license consumption. So we show you from the last 30 days, how many users are connected to how your license consumption has changed over the last 30 days. And in each case, when you hover over the chart, we show you the time frame that that is indicated by this data point. We show you what that license consumption looks like. And please bear in mind that our license consumption for MU refers to the 90 days from any data point. So we show you the past 90 days that constitute the license consumption at this point. Here we show basically that is the 30 days, the 90 days comprising from the 3 months prior. We also give you the ability to click on this blue portion and see which are the users that contribute towards that license consumption. You click on view users, and what you see is all the usernames that are contributing towards that license consumption. This, just like for all the real-time widgets, this widget is also not impacted by the page selector filter, because we showed this over the last 30 days, and the current, of course, shows you right now, and it's not affected by the time filter selection. So now you have the ability to see all the usernames whose login time might well be 3 months prior, and they could have never logged into Prisma Access in the last 30 days. However, based on the license consumption construct that we have, they do count towards the license consumption, and you now have full view of that when you click the view users at any point in this 30-day segment. As I indicated, we undertook the Global Protect map view enhancements, and there is just, instead of enhancements, it's basically what it is a complete overhaul. So you see lots of different information now. We have done away with the two-pronged filter selectors. We give you the ability to see all the users in real time who are clustered around all your Prisma Access locations. So that is the real-time view of all users. You, of course, have the ability to go and change the real-time view to the last 15 minutes, last 30 days, last 7 days, and so forth that we provide you at for all our charts. You can see what the distribution of your users looks like. So now bear in mind that these are users and not user devices, because the basic construct in Prisma Access is that you can connect, the same user can connect through multiple devices to Prisma Access, but they only still consume a single user license. And the user is our basic construct to that through the lens of which we view their activity and their consumption of license. This is the same construct that is used throughout Prisma Access, whether it is for security, where we show you what threats are experienced based on user activity, the number of devices, the device profile that we get through the HIP information from your device, and the user behavior that we notice through your device connectivity, and the different applications that you access. So the user construct, the device construct, and the application construct are the unifying constructs throughout Prisma Access, and we're reflecting that now through Prisma Access Insights. The connected user is our basic metric. We show you the connected user's position with respect to your Prisma Access locations, and the user activity of how many devices that the same user has used to connect to Prisma Access, and all the device parameters, whether that is the Global Protect version, the login time, and so forth. We give you the ability to search by a user, and this can be in real time, by a name of a user, and it populates a list of different possible matches. You choose, select one, and we show you on the map where that user is. And we indicate whether that user was found or not. And again, bear in mind, this is the user and not the user device. When we show you the user cluster, these are clusters of users on the map view. We show you the clusters, and when you click on a Prisma Access location, we show you which are the users that are connecting to that Prisma Access locations. And where there's a lot of density, if you click on the arcs that connect the user clusters to a Prisma Access location, it'll give you that infinite modal, which shows you all these connected users. You can, of course, then click on the user to get more details about the Global Protect version, the family of the device that they're using to connect, and so forth. When you click on a single user, it also shows you the user details page, which tells you the device behavior with respect to the to Prisma Access locations that the user has connected to, and how many times have they had these login events. What is the Global Protect version of that user, which is the login time, what is the OS family, last user location, last Prisma Access location, and what have you. So these are significant overhauls of the Global Protect map. And I'm going to walk you through a demo instance of PA Insights. But I think in the interest of the questions that people have, I want to show you what is coming at the end of the month. And at the end of the month, what we are also going to have for you, in addition to the connected users, is the devices of connected users. And all of these now correspond exactly to a users that are connected to Prisma Access at any time range that you select. Our time filter selections are sticky, therefore, when you make a selection of a time filter, it persists through all the pages. You will then be able to see all the devices that the same user and all the users have used to connect to Prisma Access. While in the connected users, you had unique users shown. Therefore, if in 7 days you had 1,000 users connected, you would have a single row representing each of these users in the connected user view. In the device view, if a single user has had at least one or more devices, you are likely to see a lot more of those entries in the table. Therefore, a single user might have multiple table entries based on the devices. Each row will correspond to a single device, and this device would show you the Global Protect client version, the OS that device represents. That device could be a laptop, it could be a phone, and different types of laptops. We indicate all of those devices, the Global Protect version, as well as, of course, the PA locations, login time, the user locations, and so forth that the users have connected with. All our data is exportable, and you can export these to CSV files. And these really correspond to the user connections that we used to show you prior to 3.1.2, but now there is much greater fidelity in the data. And when you see 428 devices in this time filter that is selected, these would correspond exactly to the connected users who are represented in those 24 hours. There are different ways in which you can use the filters, lots of filters that you had previously. For the user connections page, the device name, the OS family, the Global Protect version, and so forth. So this is the change that you will see coming at the end of September. And with this, we would have completed the journey for our mobile users, Global Protect Connected, where we show you not just the connected users, but the devices of connected users for you to have full visibility into your Prisma Access consumption. With that, I think I would have addressed some of the questions that were raised about the data that got deprecated. The data did not get deprecated. We were showing that in the connected user view per user when you clicked on a user view, but that aggregated data for all the users in your environment will be aggregated in the table that will appear at the end of this month. We also show you the histogram, which shows the binning values across the time filter selected. So across, say, last 24 hours, you will be able to see the data every 3 hours. And when you click on the histogram, the data in the table corresponding to that clicked time instant changes, and you would see the number reflected as below in the table that is comprised.